Welcome to A Call to Healing. I'm your host, Melanie McDaniel. Today's guest is Ethereal Hope, an entheogenic educator, integration specialist, intuitive spiritual guide, death doula, and medicine woman. This is a real conversation about how to navigate the potential pitfalls of working with plant medicines. A Call to Healing is sponsored by Cenevita, a platform helping practitioners spend more time in service and less time in the back office. Let's get this conversation started. Hello, Hope. Welcome to A Call to Healing. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Melanie. It's an honor to spend time with you this afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I get to talk to all of the most amazing people, and you included. So I'm so excited to dive into your story and what you have to share with the world.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's start kind of with, in your words, however much you want to share who you are, where you're from, how you kind of got to where you are now.
Well, that's a lot. I'm half a century old, so there's a lot there. I was born in the Midwest, and I grew up in Florida and Texas, product of childhood of a lot of divorce. My parents both married multiple times, so there was a lot of upheaval. I was in a different school every year, and it wasn't until I hit high school that I really got to try to land somewhere. But by then, the nomad effect of not really having roots anywhere really kind of shaped what would really characterize my early adulthood in this not really knowing who I was, not really knowing what I wanted, and a lot of like internal turmoil that led me to bad decisions. I had a very tumultuous early marriage that ended quickly. And I don't know, I think I'm still kind of recovering from that massive heartbreak. Um, I went on to find joy in working in Hollywood. I moved to Los Angeles right after I turned 30. I became an art director in film and television. And I found that being in film was a great way to check out of my world. It's all encompassing. It's great for workaholics. It's 80, 90-hour weeks, and you're building worlds that don't exist with other people. So the environment of collaboration and camaraderie and unity with a shared vision is something that I had never really seen in my life. I became an entrepreneur at the age of 20 and had several companies by 25. And so shutting all that down and getting into Hollywood gave me something as an experience that I had never had in my life before. As an only child that moved a lot, was a home in the story that we created. And it was a wonderful journey. And I'm so glad that I went and did that. And but about 20 years into this process, I started to see that on the outside, I had the world that I thought I wanted. I worked where I wanted. I made really good money. When I wasn't working, I got to play all over the world. I traveled to exotic places. I had fancy friends. I went on spontaneous trips in private places, private jets, private yachts, and the more that was my reality, the more isolated and alone I felt inside. It felt like this was supposed to bring joy, and I'm not feeling joy. I'm feeling really alone inside. Even in I remember very clearly a very defining moment, my 39th birthday. My friends threw a party for me. It's 4th of July. And we're in a private home on a cliff in Laguna with fireworks over the ocean, and everybody's dancing around me. And my friends who threw the party, they just had announced their engagement. And she came up and said, "What do you think about your 40th birthday being our wedding in Tulum?" And Tulum was my happy place. And I was just like, I felt like I was supposed to be elated, like that this was a dream come true, that I had the friends that I always dreamed of, that I spent time in the places that I always dreamed of. And these plans that were unfolding of, future. Like it wasn't just a one-time thing in the moment. It was people were planning future things with me, which was a new experience. And I got vertigo and went and sat in the corner and just was completely feeling very alone, like spinning in a room full of people that, were celebrating me. And I couldn't, it couldn't get in. It just didn't feel real. Right. And there was a real sad, as I recall, and, getting a little teary, like it felt very sad to me. In the months following that, I started realizing that I needed to go in, and I had no model for that. I, maybe I, through the 90s, I followed like who's the astrologer, Linda Goodman, I think it is. I had her books, Beverly D'Angelo on the Oprah Show, Gary Zukav. I read that book, Seed of the Soul, when it came out. Um, I had read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. So like I had a little bit from my reading, of what that kind of looked like, but I had no practicum in the real world or any role model to really look at that. So I just went in and I started exploring the idea of what sobriety might look like in a world that was really partyful and fanciful. And I had been a psychedelic enthusiast at that point for decades. I was almost always on mushrooms socially. Most people didn't even know who I was, not on them, and they didn't even know I was on them usually. So I would eat mushrooms like someone would have a glass of wine or a beer, and that just was how I was able to like go through the world as an adult with this slightly disassociated experience going on that had a rich inner world happening, and it kind of protected me as a buffer from the outer world. I got invited to partake in ayahuasca in Tulum, and I knew my intuition was always very high, and I knew that that was not the time or place for me to do that, but that it would come back. And about 11 months later, it came back, and I was invited to a ceremony, and then my guide said, not that ceremony. I couldn't be in that ceremony. I was really heartbroken. So I was telling a friend, I was planning to go have this ceremony, but my guides are telling me no. And he said, oh, our other friends are also doing one that same night in this other place. Why don't you call so-and-so? And I did, and I went and I had that experience. And it was the beginning of a coming home where, I felt like I had found a place that was safe to start to pull back the onion. It, by no means was resolved. I think just the crusty outer layer that you see in the store was what kind of got a little crinkly, but we definitely didn't get to the meat of it in that experience.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of make sure I understand. So it was your 39th birthday. When did you do the ayahuasca? Was that before your 40th?
Just yes, it was between the 39th birthday would have been in July, and the ayahuasca opportunity came around on November 11th.
Okay.
And that was going right hand in hand with that idea that I needed to potentially explore sobriety in my outer world outside of ceremony. And it drove kind of a wedge between my friends because I couldn't participate. There were actually two weddings. It was my birthday and two weddings, and I couldn't really participate in any of the pre-wedding shenanigans for anybody because I had, vowed to myself to explore what being sober in the world looked like. Um, a month before the 40th birthday in Tulum, I really wasn't even sure if I was going to go, which was flooring everyone. Like nobody, you have to come to the wedding. I said, well, I've paid for the seats, so take someone else. If I can't go, like it was just, this was really important to me. And as inconvenient as that was for everybody else, I really stuck to that. I did the 90 days. I was very proud of myself for that. I didn't go to Vegas. I did go to other events where I was assured that there would be non-alcoholic options or, and or it was known among my friends that, hey, don't offer anything, because I was really committed. And a month before July, so in June, mid June, a new friend of mine said, "There's this man coming to town. He does this ceremony. I think you should go." And I was like, I just had ayahuasca. I'm really sitting with that. I'm in this 90 days of sobriety. She goes, "Just trust me. This is life altering. Just go." And so I get hold of the guy, go through the interview, get invited to an orientation. I was more concerned with what guys were in the room, because it was a large, like, he was doing a lot of group circles, but he had everybody new to the work in this orientation room, and I wasn't paying attention. Like, I kind of believed that there really wasn't anything you could tell me about a psychedelic that I didn't already know, right? I just felt I got this. Like, I don't need to really pay attention, but I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. So the day comes to do the ceremony, and I was getting a lot of intuition about taking that sobriety a little further into fasting, and really, really showing up for myself, whatever that looked like. And as we opened the circle, I felt my body just kind of levitating. It wasn't an unfamiliar experience, but it was just like, wow, like, I'm not on anything. Like, and I haven't been on anything. And I'm having this, super enlightened experience before we ever even did anything. When it became my turn to take it, and the molecule was 5-MeO DMT, I took it, and I don't know, you go into a kind of suspended reality. At times seems a lot longer than it really is. But I remember very clearly opening my eyes and seeing the molecules that embody the space that is in between us, that's not space. I could see the geometric overlay of space between two humans. And I was shown that love is not something that comes in, love is something that goes out, and what that looked like. And it's moving when I think about it. It's something I had not understood. Love, being loved, feeling love, giving it. I had no concept of what that really looked like and felt like. And it felt like a coming home to, just a peaceful place of existence and joy in existing. And it was really beautiful, and was really wonderful. And I took up sitting with this medicine every 6 months after that, when I got the message to serve the server, right? To be of service. So whenever he would come back, I would drop everything, and I would go, and I would cut fruit, and I would greet people, and I would clean up, and I would just anything to be in the space and be in the environment, and also to be able to partake. And when I had the medicine the second time, it was a completely opposite experience. I believe I died, not in the metaphorical sense of I'm dying, but in the I opened my eyes and I wasn't breathing, and I was blue, and people were scrambling around the room.
Oh, wow.
I was gasping for air. I have historically have asthma, um, and it just was jarring. And in the days immediately following that, I couldn't make heads or tails of life on Earth. Everything seemed so frivolous. The things that we worry about, shelter, food, clothing, people, events, status, career, money, all felt not real, not tangible. And I had no one to talk to about it. And including my medicine man, who, God love him. We are in great relation, decade plus later. But he told me to go walk on the beach and that I would feel better. And I did not. I did not go walk on the beach. It felt trivial. It felt dismissive. It felt not really acknowledged, and I don't know if that's because I present as a very capable person and I'm pretty mild mannered in my presence and, but authoritative, but I didn't feel like I was being taken very seriously. And I reached out to the community that I had the ayahuasca with, and the actor friend of mine who hosted it is now doing a rap album, and he invited me over, and everybody's drinking, and they're smoking cigars, and they're sitting in a hot tub, and I'm like, this is not the support I needed, and there really was nowhere to go, no one to talk to. I found the only solace that I found in my rumination of none of this is real, day in, day out, reactivations every single morning, seeing light beings in my room, just waking up to this. We're here again. We're here again. Alan Watts was a great, I could listen to him before he got AI'd. um, his real lectures gave me some solace, but that experience and working through that experience is really the basis of everything to come after that, that put me in the place that I am in now, was understanding that there's a very small percentage of people who decide to have 5-MeO who don't understand what they're doing for whatever reason, with too big of a dose, not good education, my case, not paying attention, not taking it seriously, and having really nowhere to turn after. 12 years ago, there was no integration circles. There were no psychedelic integration coaches certified online. There were no Facebook groups. I made several of them. I'm in a lot of them. I admin groups of tens of thousands of people looking for help. They're just, none of that existed, and I'm really glad that all of that is out there now for people, because it's needed. If you come back from a peak experience like that and you feel completely disassociated, it can really affect life as we know it. People lose marriages, lose their jobs, lose belongings, housing, they make rash decisions in those moments, and this reality is not real. But the truth is we have to come to terms with, this is a version of reality that we are in and does have to be addressed and cannot be spiritually bypassed. And it's not, oh, you got what you needed. It's like, oh no, you got more than you had expected. And these people, myself included, needed help or need help in knowing that it's going to be okay. And I think that the number one message that people really find comfort in is when they find out that they're not alone, right? Because most people that are in this situation of complex integration don't know that there are people that can help them with integration, because they weren't told, or the facilitator isn't offering it, or you know and so for those people, they need to just hear, like, it's okay, other people have gone through this and you're going to be okay. And I like to give people that reach out to me a scale, 1 to 10, 10 meaning you're kind of excuse me. I've only ever spoken to a 7, 7, 8. Most people think they're 10. They're really in the 4s, 5s.
Hmm.
There, and one conversation of, you're going to be fine, just breathe, just go do this, go do that, but I'm here for you. You're going to be fine, and I'm here for you. That's it. No gaslighting, no trying to conceptualize it for them, no telling them you need to ground or eat beef or smoke this or eat that or go there or do this. There's nothing you can do, because it's an inner standing that has to evolve. And the only thing to do is not do, right? That you're being called to not do. And the more you try to do about it, the less you're really getting what it's trying to show you, I believe.
Yeah. My first psychedelic was in 2021, and it was the same molecule. And the next day, when I texted my facilitator, I'm not okay, the response was, I don't do that, call a therapist.
Wow. What year was that?
2021.
My God, that
Yeah,
gives me chills. That so
I
I've
would.
been quiet for like 3 years. I just took a job because I kind of thought they've got this. They've got this. That there's the truth is no, no. They don't all got it, and
No,
my
not
heart breaks for that for you for you
call
know.
it an annihilation trauma. So I think
Okay.
what you do now, what you use the ceremony induced trauma. I saw you that term on your website. So let's talk about this because I am a smart person. I did lots of research. I watched lots of documentaries and listened to lots of podcasts, but I was in my head about it because I wasn't a spiritual person at the time. And when I went in, it was a spiritual experience, and I didn't want one of those. That's not what I was going there for. So for people who get blindsided, because some people they're ready, right? Like it can be their first medicine, not recommended. Some people have done other medicines and it's time for them. It's a beautiful medicine. But let's talk to the people who might get blindsided by it. What information do you have for them, or post resources, prep, anything that you recommend for something that powerful?
Well, first off, hopefully uh, they're well informed, and I'm not talking about research in terms of what the molecule is and what it does, but you know how you could end up that the dissolution of reality is a complete possibility. And I do a lot of pre-coaching with people, like they get directed to me and they're going to do this thing, and what do I think, and I just say, are you ready for life as you know it to completely disappear? Because if you're not, then now's not the time for that. Because if you're not okay with that, and you bring that fear into it of what if this happens or what if that happens, or that fear is going to um, be amplified. Like the medicine is an amplification device. Whatever's going on inside you is going to get amplified. And if you haven't taken some look at what that constitution is, for me, it was sadness and grief, that's what's going to get amplified, right? If fear, that's what's going to get like amplified. So first is just knowing that that's a potential outcome. It's not a lot of people. It's 1 out of 10, 10 out of 100. My rough, I made this up, but this is how I feel after all these years, that if 10 people take it, any medicine, 9 people are going to be okay, right? Maybe 3 of them need to talk to someone afterwards, but 9 of them are, after one conversation or no conversation, they're going to be completely fine. One person is going to be obliterated. And you could be that person. That could be you, right? So I think that's step one. You have to just really be fully in, like down to the moment that you are taking it. So when I was working in Mexico and serving, I would ask permission before the moment. Are you ready? And are you sure? Because you can, you need to be allowed to say no. And if you have a facilitator or you have friends or you have a circle or a community that is not going to let you out of it for especially financial reasons, but
Mhm.
or for whatever reason. So when people come, a lot of the things that I see that trigger off a uncomfortable integration, complex integration, is they didn't trust their intuition. They had questions or doubts about the facilitator themselves being the right person, or they got an ick and they just talked themselves out of it. Or they paid a deposit and then sat on it and decided that it maybe really wasn't the right time, but because they had paid, they went forward because there was obligation either to themselves financially, or they weren't going to get a refund, or friends were peer pressure is a huge pre-indicator of where someone's like, no, just do this. I mean, I had that a little bit in mind, but I take full responsibility. Like, it was a little bit of, you need to do it, but I went for it. But a lot of times I'll get calls from people who their friends said this was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Mhm.
And they didn't know if they needed it or not. They were right. And that doubt amplified on the most powerful molecule that we know is going to induce panic, right? Also, not feeling safe with the facilitator or in the circle for any reason whatsoever, whether that's a male female non safeness, it's an environmental non safety, if it's a medical non safety, any sort of unsafe feeling in the person taking it can result in not having a full experience in the ceremony, which can trigger off reactivation, specifically with 5-MeO, which is the sense of being in the experience again, either partially or fully. And I've heard of this coming on while people were driving. You know, it's very common to come on in the middle of the night. So we're loss of sleep, which can be a feedback loop of disassociation. You're not sleeping, so then you're delirious, and then you're still not sleeping, so more delirium, and then you're in a panic, and oh my God, what have I done? And I've screwed up my whole life. And you know, it's just like with a snake eating its tail kind of thing, right? One leads to the other. So you know, I feel like when people are told the truth about what can happen, specifically with 5-MeO, because that's obviously my area of heightened focus. But if people are really told the truth, a large percentage of people opt not to go forward. And I feel like that when you have practitioners that are using the medicine to make a living, they need that money. And so whether they intentionally do it or not, they may serve someone that had money not been a factor, maybe they wouldn't. And that makes me sad. That makes me very sad. So I like to tell people, like, know what you're getting into, know what the potential outcome could be, know who you can call to say, hey, I got you. I mean, even now, after all these years, if I decide to go into ceremony, I don't recommend doing it alone. I have done it a couple of times, but even then, I have a few friends on notice. Hey, I'm about to do this thing, either alone or with others, or I might need someone later. Are you available at 5 o'clock? Are you available tonight? Are you available tomorrow? And I've got in my mind, and other people knowing, I'm going into something that I might need some support. And just that sometimes turns out you don't even need it, right? But the fact that it's creating this pre-ceremony safety net around yourself, that you feel good, you feel safe, you feel in right alignment, and you have a backup plan on the outside of, you know, also a really great question for this facilitator, like, will you be there for me on the other side of this? You know, if they, or what's your plan, you know, if this goes sideways in me, right? The problem really is that most people coming into this that don't know about the world of integration, about the world of holistic healing, about spirituality, about any of that, are coming at it from a very brainiac kind of viewpoint of, you told me it'll be fine, what could go wrong, right? You don't know what you don't know, and you're just going on the word of the facilitator of what they've educated you in, and if they've left stuff out, you might not know. I mean, obviously there's a lot more information on the web now, especially with AI, you know, and a lot of the work that we've done, my peers and I, you know, makes up the basis of some of this information that's on the web now, which is where my heart really went into of, okay, how do I get people to a safer experience on the onset? One of those ways was making it known that there are bad actors, naming them, getting press on it, getting their names up on Google searches, so that, and there, at the time in, you know, 2014, 2013, 2012 to 2014, there were really only 2 or 3 public individuals traversing the globe, blasting open hundreds of people a weekend, city after city after city, leaving a trail of disassociated, mangled souls, that the influx was just so disheartening. And I had met the individuals, both of them, and had been in ceremony in their presence before I knew what was going on behind the scenes. And I just happened to be on the path that these individuals were on. And so, firsthand account, I saw a lot of the harms that were being perpetrated. So, this wasn't a hearsay situation or a cause that I took up because, I felt like it would be a good cause to get behind. No, I was there. I was there. I saw it. I almost went to work for one of them. Um, I'm so glad that Spirit intervened and had other plans for me, and saved me from probably some other trajectory. But I feel like also, there's a lot of people that, like me, on the other end of it, I just wanted to serve. Like, I didn't care about any of the rewards, whether monetary or and by serve, I mean, I didn't want to serve the medicine. That was never my plan, ever. That was not my plan. My plan was to be of service to the medicine servers. That's where I felt I could be most valuable. How can I help you do better at what you're doing? Um, and then I was invited to learn to serve. And so I took that opportunity, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I want to fill in the gaps a little bit of what you did from you consider it a spiritual awakening from like that first, when you went from recreationally using mushrooms in lieu of alcohol to that vertigo experience on your birthday to leading you to ayahuasca. Like, would you consider that an awakening of sorts? And then kind of what happened after that? Because I know you left Hollywood, right? But I don't know when. So just, yeah, what the last 10 years or so.
I left Hollywood when I was invited to go down and serve in Mexico.
Okay.
And then I returned to Hollywood when I needed like to try to get grounded. So I did a little stint there pre-COVID, but um, my intention was always to have left, but I did go back for a little while just for to get back into life as, some sort of something that wasn't all psychedelics. Um, I want to say I was always a spiritual person. While I grew up in an atheist household, I was sent to Christian camp because those were the safe people.
Hmm.
Comical now. My nannies were Christians, so I was introduced to church. When I went to live with my mother, she was church going, and so I found my way into evangelical churches. So when I was in my early 20s, I went to a Pentecostal speaking in tongues evangelical church, and I really found my home there and was speaking in tongues. I'll never forget that day when, they're encouraging you to let go and let that language come through and what that looked like. And I was in church, through my 20s into my early 30s, 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, it was my life. That was the home before Hollywood was there, but I saw issues there. I saw a lot of hypocrisy there. I saw, there was a lot of projection going on to me, that I needed to do this or that. I needed a husband. It's like, did that, thank you, don't, no thank you. And you're kind of this, like, as a woman in the church, at least back then, it was like you're a pariah. You're this young woman that doesn't want to be married. Where do we put you? Like, you're not single because you're not trying to not be single and all this. So anyway, you know when I went to Hollywood, probably what delayed that was leaving the church, because I just felt like I wasn't going to find what I had in Texas. Fortunately for me, I found Michael Bernard Beckwith, who runs Agape International in Los Angeles. And I started going there. So I did have, but it's more of a spiritual church, a unity place, agape love. It's all religions, Christ as a consciousness, right? So that language was already starting to kind of permeate me as I was having these, so I would say I was a very spiritual person, but it still was an awakening, because spirituality was something that was outside of me in the church. Even in all my reading, it was conceptual. It was a consciousness. It was a desired state of being. I didn't know how to bring that beingness in here. You could talk about it all day long. I mean, the speaking in tongues was probably the closest I got to that, which took an interesting turn once I had five and I returned to the recreational. Things did not go well for a number of years. I will call it a full on possession. It's not a secret. I've talked about it before. The doors were open. It was very uncomfortable for the people around me. It was uncomfortable for me. It was uncontrollable. It was happening at inopportune moments. And, getting a handle on that became my only priority, which, kind of leads to why I went a little bit back into Hollywood of just like, okay, I got to get out of all this ceremony and all this psychedelic and all this healing. And right, I just need to go back to what I know, which is, working on set and just taking that little break.
Possession, was that while you were in Mexico during that medicine time?
It went on for 5 years, and I was only in Mexico for a year. For running Crossroads. So yeah, it was going on. It was controlled. I want to say it got, God, I just had I'm having like a hot flash. Just like trying to search my brain for this, because I haven't talked about any of this in so many years. Yeah, I want to say that I knew I had a real problem in 2017, and I was working at Crossroads in 2015. So it was about 2016 when I left Crossroads. Crossroads Ibogaine 5-MeO treatment center that was a detox center. They had hired me to come down and be the guide for the psycho-spiritual experiences that were happening every other weekend. And when I went down to tour the facility, I was there on the Bufo Day, which is 5-MeO from the Sonoran Desert Toad. I saw some real problems, having come off of the back of 2014 and seeing these other providers and what they were doing and where there were real gaps in support and integration and aftercare. I saw the same thing happening at Crossroads when I went down that day. It was just coincidence, if there is such a thing. But the day I was visiting, the gentleman that would come and serve the 5-MeO to the detox patients having gone through Ibogaine, he was there. And I was sitting in the living room, and people would come up from, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I would see people coming up from their experience and they didn't have anybody to talk to. It's like, because they're all detox patients. And so when you come in on heroin, everybody's on a different journey, right? Like heroin's a very isolating thing. You might do it in the same room, but you're definitely not together. And the 5-MeO experience for most people immediately post, it's exciting. You want to connect. You're happy. Like you sit up, oh my God, what was that? Not everybody, but most people. And I saw this girl put her iPod on and sink into the couch, and my heart broke for her. And so I met with the owner right after that, and I said, you need help spiritually in the whole program, not just this weekend where people are coming because they want to have a spiritual experience, which I don't recommend, by the way. I do not recommend Ibogaine as a spiritual experience by itself. Iboga, maybe do your homework. Not where I would lead people. It's kind of, to me, it's a great medicine, but if you're not coming in with a lot of trauma and you're literally just curious, like there are way better things to be doing. So I'm running a program for people coming down to have an experience that makes no sense to me. But Monday through Friday, I'm running the detox program, and it was intense. I didn't have a day off. And on Sundays, I would drive back up to Los Angeles. I would lead the spiritual team in a sound bath when sound baths were really just like in New York and LA. We'd have 100 people there having a breathwork spiritual experience. I would be in there to help hold that container, that space. I would sleep in my Hollywood house. And then on Monday morning, I would drive back down to Mexico to go back to the detoxing center. So I was again in the workaholic kind of mode. I had just taken what I was already doing, and now I'm doing it over here. And so I would say that I didn't really have an issue with the possession in Mexico. it really became an issue when I left the clinic. I got the message, they're telling me, you need to sit down for a minute. Like, you need to take a step back. You need to take a break. You need to really just like let some of this soak in. And so I went about my previous life, Burning Man, Lightning in a Bottle, festivals. I was a unicorn. I had the wardrobe. I drove the RVs. It was very much a part of my identity. And it was in those environments, in the recreational use, that the medicine woman that was, waiting for me to embody, but I was doing it, but I really wasn't being it, if that makes sense. And here there was a split. It was like I was fractured. It was like, I'm doing the motions of this medicine work and being a medicine woman, right? But there's this other fragmented reality over here where the medicine woman is an embodiment. I did not know how to do that. And I didn't have anybody to tell me. And there were interesting people along the way that popped up to help me: psychics, mediums, channelers. I took channeling classes. That's ultimately how I reconciled the two. Was every Saturday for 4 hours, I would sit in a room full of women trying to open and channel. And I could already do that. I was trying to learn how to unchannel, and there wasn't an unchanneling class. So I took the channeling class, and I learned that. So for anybody out there, here's the cheat sheet. You don't have to hire me if you are having a problem with a fragmented reality and other beings are speaking through you. You just have to say no. It's literally that simple. Just say, you can't be here right now. And you have to mean it with full conviction, and it goes. It closes shop. So
what are you doing now?
well, by the time this gets released, the secret will be out. I've left Hollywood. I took a lot of courses. I took Reiki courses and death doula courses, and I walked dogs. And I just, for the last, I want to say 4 years or so, I just did everything except, serve or talk about serving. I would occasionally pop up in an interview or an article, but, for the most part, just kind of was trying to live a pretty quiet life. Last year, towards the end of the year, I started looking at, okay, well, maybe I want to come out of the shadows, and I'm ready again to work with people, that need me. And I didn't really know what that kind of looked like. There's a lot of things I could be offering. My heart is not in offering for the sake of offering to make money. It's, I really want it to feel like something that I'm bringing to people that need it. And I came across Gus Walsh, who had launched Cenevita.com. And we had a really wonderful conversation about, what I know about healers and the complexity of running businesses. And so my brand of magic of knowing tech, knowing entrepreneurship, knowing healing, understanding the life cycle of a healer, the challenges and what we need. And so I've spent the last 4 months working almost daily with Cenevita and helping to shape that product. And I'm very proud of what he has founded and what we have. And I mean, I haven't developed it, but been helping. And I've moved to Austin, Texas, and I'm hopefully, by the time this is out, there'll be a way that people can work with me. My heart is obviously helping people in crisis that have had some ceremonial trauma, whatever that looks like, whether it's 5-MeO related or not. If you've received my phone number from a friend, I take your call. And no one should feel alone in that. That's number one. Two, I feel like there's a lot of young people now coming into this space. There's an explosion of, people didn't even know what sound bowls were when we were in the sound baths in LA. 5 people, knew what that was. Now there's a sound bath everywhere. There's probably a sound bath in a town near you. You're probably invited to a sound bath today. Like there's, it's just really proliferated. And I think that is wonderful. But what I don't see, and I see it as a desire for women of my age or women with some tenure in this space, having kind of a hard time weaving together and connecting themselves, right? Not in a goddess circle of, oh my God, power and let your tantra flow, but like a wisdom keepers type environment where we can come and speak truth, and it's not anything that needs to be fixed or not fixed, but find camaraderie in our wisdom and our years and our experience. Talk about what's going on. There's still people being taken advantage of in ceremony. People are still finding themselves without support afterwards. And so I feel like my mission, where I'm really headed, is in helping to weave together these women globally so that locally they can get involved with helping some of the younger people that are coming into this space, male and female. I would love to see more safe spaces created for men. Um, and men and young men and women who have taken the medicine and had decided that they have been called to serve it, and there's no checks and balances because it's the underground. I don't, we could talk both sides of that coin. And I don't really want to be involved in legislation. I see both sides equally, but regardless of what the government wants to make available or not, or what hoops certain people can jump through, there are people serving. Some should be, some shouldn't be. And I feel like the ones that shouldn't be often just have bad training. It's like bad facilitator trained, bad facilitator trained, bad facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
And for a number of years there, if you told me how your ceremony went and it wasn't great, I could almost trace back who trained whom to get to that place. And uh, yeah, I just want to be a part of bringing more education, bringing more connectivity and the wisdom of elders, and making mentorship accessible to young people, removing this stigma of you should have it all figured out on your own, right? You're called to do the medicine, right? You should know what you're doing. Like, I didn't do it alone. I was trained in a medical environment by medical doctors. I was trained by individuals that have decades in this work in secret. I have a level of accountability to them. I think that these things are really important. And I think opening up spaces for that to be more prevalent is what's really needed right now.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe you don't have everything launched at the moment, but these, if people want to be part of these containers, are you putting them together on Instagram, Facebook, or like where can people at least follow you for now until you start launching these women or elder types, men, women, whatever they are, medicine holders, or yeah, where can they?
Circles.
Yeah.
Community through unity was a note that I kind of wrote down today. So I'm branding as portals of hope, meaning there are doors that we walk through. And right now I have a program on school that I'm developing, but cenevita.com, I'm a provider. If you create an account at cenevita.com and you search providers, you can find me there. You can find my contact information, the website. I'm on Instagram as Ethereal Hopes with an S. So, yeah, one of those two ways you can find your way to me. I'm not hard to find. I'm on all the platforms. I'm in a lot of the groups, and I also have a website, 5meohelp.com, for individuals who find themselves specifically in the emergency of 5meo aftercare need, like for 911 calls. So that site is live, 5meohelp.com.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wish I knew where to go, and I was too embarrassed to call a therapist, and I never have talked to a therapist, so I wasn't about to start. I just hunkered down in Mexico and cried for 10 days.
Did that work?
Well, I had my dad to talk to, and I had another friend to talk to, and then in 10 days, a friend came to meet me. It was a plan that was already or a trip that was already planned. So she came, and I was very happy to have her help. But yeah, I mean, it cracked me wide open, and it took about 6 months to really integrate it, and almost 2 years. It was almost 2 years before I ever did another medicine again. Like I really could have used support, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Right, I was a very smart person, had done lots of research, but this idea of integration, still I hadn't found it or found a community or whatever. So I know there are a lot of people like me. I know plenty of people who 5-MeO was their first medicine and had a similar, I would call it a destabilization. But on the other side of it, like all things, that's how I had to experience it. That's part of my path and part of my higher self deciding to punch me in the face. We're going to wake this chick up real fast, like whatever. So looking back, it's like, okay, that needed to happen, but it doesn't have to happen like that to everybody. So I'm glad there are people out there like you that aren't just serving the medicine, but integrating the medicine, because I think it's really fun to serve, right? It's really fun to shake someone up and see their initial reaction. But when you leave those people and like if they're left alone, it can be a dark place as you integrate that. So thank you for the work that you do.
Your medicine person should be doing checkups. If your medicine person is afraid to take their own medicine in their own accountability regularly, whether it's annually or every couple years or something, like that's a good question for your facilitator. How often do you sit, not in service, but for yourself? Right? That'll really tell you something. And where do you sit? Who holds that space for you? Who do you trust with that container? These are all really important questions. For me, it was the longevity of the commitment to my healing that I believe ultimately cleared all of the layers. Now, I'm not healed. I'm not a perfect person. I mess up. I hurt people. I don't want to, but I'm still human, but I want to be better. I want to do better, right? But I'm in a comfortable place where now I don't really need it. I just had a full year of alcohol sobriety. I never thought, not that I had a problem with alcohol in my recent years, but I never really visualized that I could actually go a full calendar year without a single drink. A whole other conversation. I spent a decade on ketamine. I can talk about ketamine addiction till the day is long. I'm 3.5 years free from that. Nobody thought I would get off of that. No one. It was just that was it. I was there, And so I attribute my regular committed use to checking in with 5-MeO to getting me through all of those things, to where now I can just be in a happy place. And now I have all that bandwidth to pour out into the community.
Beautiful. Well, I think that is a very good spot to end on. I hope people connect with you, and I'm so happy you're in Austin.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This has been A Call to Healing. I hope you feel more prepared to work with sacred earth medicines if you feel called. Hope is easy to find online, so please reach out to her. If you are in a ceremony-induced crisis, remember, you are going to be okay, and you don't have to go through it alone. A Call to Healing is supported by Cenevita, helping practitioners spend more time in service and less time in the back office. Until next time, I'm Melanie McDaniel. I hope you have a blessed day.